Welcome back to another episode of the School of Weird. And today I'm joined with someone who maybe didn't know that she was always weird, but has come out and told the world and me that she is proudly loving her weird. She calls it daring to own you, which is just another version of love your weird, in my opinion. And so I'm super excited to have Liz Bruner on the show. How are you, Liz?
I am great. So good to be with you, Frankie. Thanks so much for having me on the show.
Yeah, absolutely. And we got to talk the other day. I was on your show and I realized, wow, we need to get you in the School of Weird because you have so much to add to this conversation. Not the least of which is the power of authenticity, the power of overcoming these limiting beliefs and changing them to what I would call limitless beliefs. And so we're going to drop right into it. So a couple of things. First off, Liz, loved your book, Dare to Own You. This is Liz's book, second edition coming out soon.
Thank you.
And wait, is that you with Obama? Is that real?
That is real.
Oh my gosh. See, and Oprah?
Yes, that's real.
Oh my gosh, look at this. I'm so glad you put pictures in your book. I'm more of a picture book kind of guy. That is too cool. All right, so let's just drop into that. What are you doing with all these powerful people?
Well, most of them I had the opportunity and honor and privilege of interviewing during my 28 years as an Emmy award-winning television journalist, 20
That's
of
right.
those years here in Boston. And
I
I have to
love
tell
it.
you, that interview with President Obama took me 4 years to get. Talk about perseverance. I just kept right in the White House. I wasn't getting any response. And then one
Wow.
day I finally did. And it actually had a name other than just the generic press office.
Yeah.
And as soon as I had that name, it managed to work out. And literally within about 48 hours of getting that email, it was like, we're going to get you here, boom, boom, boom. And then you have to go through all the Secret Service stuff.
Wow.
It was crazy.
And what was the angle of the story that you were going for?
Well, ended up being 4 stories because I had to have a fresh story for the 5 p.m., the 5:30, the 6 p.m., and the 11 p.m. newscasts. And so even though I had a very short amount of time with him, I think it was maybe 7 or 8 minutes, I don't remember anymore at the moment, but I had to make sure that the questions I asked could fall into 4
All
different
the different
categories. Exactly. So as much as I would love to have talked with him for much longer than that, I was given a certain amount of time. I maximized that time. But I have to tell you, Frankie, I saved one question for the very end of the interview
Okay.
because I was paranoid that his press people were going to kick me out and say, forget it, the interview's over. And the question was, you're the president of the United States and you're the father of 2 teenage daughters. Which is harder? And he laughed and he loved it. And he said,
He said the father?
Yeah, he said,
Yeah.
I'm very fortunate that I have, 2 wonderful daughters. And it was a nice bookend to that interview because I started the interview when he walked into the room by, he greeted me and he said, hello, Liz. And I said, hello, Mr. President, or should I say aloha? I grew up in the islands of Hawaii. He was born in Hawaii. So that was the opening of our conversation. And then the question about being president or a father was the tail end. So it had a nice bookend to that interview.
I love it. I love it. And so that was an interesting exercise for you. You probably learned a lot about what you can do in 8 minutes.
Oh, yes.
Which is probably one of your expertise. Do you talk about that, or do you help people with how do you maximize limited amounts of time?
Absolutely. Because as an executive coach, consultant with people, and I'm helping them, how to craft their content, everything, their message, their pitch, their presentation, it's always a story. And that's a really hard concept for a lot of people to grasp. But how do you tell that story in a way that hooks your audience from the moment you begin, and one that is communicating, connecting, and engaging with them, and being succinct and getting the most important content out. So it's one of my most favorite things to work on with people, besides helping them figure out how to learn to use their voice and have that presence and that command, because I have so much vocal training, all of that comes into play.
Yeah, the stagecraft, everything else. So, okay, and you're teaching them that all the world's a stage, especially a boardroom or even a classroom or any room.
100%.
And that's really the secret. It's interesting you said that about the storytelling, because I think that ties into the limiting beliefs of do you run into a lot of people that feel like their story's not good enough or their story's not interesting enough? And is that a lot of the work that you do?
It's a combination of the work that I do. And what's surprising to me is sometimes, I will have these top level executives come in. I mean, they're high powered, huge partners, hugely successful. But when we start peeling away some of the layers of why they might be struggling in an area, whether it's presenting, pitching, just living their life in their work world
Mm.
and in their personal world, what invariably happens is we peel away the layers and it comes down to a lot of limiting beliefs. Hey, I've got my own limiting beliefs. I'm still working on
Right.
many of them,
Yeah.
and
Well,
that's
they
part of the
change. They
evolution. They
change.
do. They do.
And every day, I mean, it's pretty much daily work.
It
I-
is.
If you're really honest with yourself, it's a daily work because it comes out in 100 different forms.
Mhm.
And that's so interesting with the stories. And I think about that a lot because the hardest thing to do, I find, in like business settings, especially if it's corporate, it's high stakes, whatnot. You feel like, wow, if I get into stories, I'm gonna annoy them or bore them. And
Mm.
I've been in scenarios, not a ton, but I've always been the type, as you can imagine, that when I do a pitch, I'm telling the story of like, where did this product that we invent come from? Why is it matter? And the stories are all stories that matter to them as well. But every once in a while, you'll have the person who's like, listen, can you just get to the demo or whatever, right? Or can you just get to the point? How do you help people navigate it? I'm
Mm.
actually kind of curious for myself because sometimes when I get that, it's hard for me not to be like, oh yeah, I can get to the demo. And then I do like a 3.5 minute demo and hang up. So obviously that's not probably the right move. And I don't always do that.
No, not exactly.
Yeah. Tell me what you would tell a guy like me for something like that.
Well, not just you, but just in general. First of all, it's always about the audience. It's about them. It's not about you.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to think about what is it that they care about, not what you think you care about that they want to hear. What is it that they care about? And sometimes when people are doing presentations, they feel this high need to set it all up with, well, we're in this many companies and we've had this many products and this many. No, what does this audience care about, whether it's one or 1,000?
Mm.
The second thing is a lot of clients feel like they need to have a lot of statistics and they need to have a lot of data and they need to have a lot of research.
Yeah.
That's important. However, what's more important, Frankie, is what's the story
Behind
behind
the research
those
and the
numbers?
data.
What's the
Yeah.
story behind that research? Why would they care about those numbers?
Right.
And when you can create and craft the story of why that matters, why
Mm-hmm.
it's important, now you've got them engaged. Now you've got them interested. Now they want to hear more.
Yes.
So
I
helping
love that.
people figure that out, and what's fun is sometimes I'm working with clients who may be up for a promotion and they have to give their business case. And they often come out with, well, I did this and then I did that. And then I did this and then I did that.
Right.
It's this
It's a bunch
resume.
of features and functionality.
It's a resume laundry list. That's what
Yeah.
I call it. And what needs to happen is what's your story? Even going back as far as, what did you want to be when you grew up and all of those things that you and I both know are so
Yeah.
important to figuring out your weird.
That's
What is
it.
your essence? What is your special uniqueness?
Mm-hmm.
What is it that you own? And how can you use that to put that story together? And to the point you made just a moment ago about, some people are worried, well, I don't know if I should tell a personal story. Well, guess what? More often than not, if it's told in the right way, it's relatable and you
Mm-hmm.
engage people.
Well, and I think the personal stories, what I've found is that like, as long as I think one of the secrets to storytelling too, in settings like that, or really any setting, is not to feel like it has to be a novel or a book. I think that sometimes for a long time, I heard a story and I was like, oh man, this has got to be 10 minutes long. But I think the sweet spot is like 2 to 5 minutes at the
Yes.
most, right?
Yes. Exactly. And, having come from my journalism background of having been a news anchor for 28 years, I'm used to taking massive amounts of content and whoosh, bringing it down
Getting it
to
low.
small little nuggets of things. When you only have 30 seconds or a minute sometimes to tell a story and you've done a half an hour interview with somebody, how are
Mhm.
you going to bring the essence of the most important content right to the forefront?
That's it. And I think that's the work. We talk about that a lot. You and I are constantly having to do this with our own body of work,
Yes.
keynotes. And I mean, the hardest part is actually saying less
Is more.
and yeah. And really the hard is like picking a lane and so let's drop into that for a minute. So A friend of mine, Jennifer Lear, did a talk. I think you were there for that last year at Impact 11, and
Yes.
there was this. She was an hour-long talk, but there was this one word I took away that like changed the way I look at confidence versus conviction, and I started to use it as a lens where, like, if I'm talking about something in one of my talks, or I'm writing about something in a book, or if it's on a slide, let's say on a deck or PowerPoint or something like that, if I don't have conviction around it, which means I don't have my own experience with it, which is kind of the gateway to conviction for me. And it doesn't matter that much that I'm conviction about it. Even if I have confidence that I can kind of like build up confidence or choose confidence, the conviction piece has been really helpful for me. And so I wanted to kind of talk to you about that. And because at the end of the day, you never know what's going to land with another human or with an audience. You really don't know. And so the only thing that you can trust in this journey is this lamppost or compass that is our own conviction. And it requires courage and bravery. But I think that, I don't know, you tell me, but I feel like that's the only way to really make an impact is if you just trust yourself enough to go all in on your convictions, even if you're not sure if 100% is going to be what they want to hear or what they even ask for.
I love that word conviction, because to me that comes back to a belief in what you're sharing, a belief in your story, a belief in your content. And if you are struggling with believing in the message that you are sharing, that will potentially diminish your confidence. Now, it may not appear externally that you are struggling with confidence, because there are enough tips and techniques and tools that I teach to my clients and that I use myself of how you can portray confidence, even if you may not feel it 100% on the inside.
Yeah. Or if you don't have conviction either. Conviction is like another level that goes down to your core values and beliefs. And I think that's why it's so important, the work you do around limiting beliefs, because of the relationship to bringing out what is it that I'm convicted about. And some of the beliefs I have that are limiting are good that they're there, because it sometimes that limiting belief is a gateway, or almost always. I don't know how you look at limiting belief, but when I think of limiting beliefs, I look at them as an opportunity to like really drill down on like, why is this a limiting belief? And it's because usually inside of that limiting belief is the gold. You just have to mine for it.
Yeah. There are so many limiting beliefs that many of us carry with us. You know, I talk about one in my book, one of my many. One of them was, I didn't think I was smart enough to run my own business. Now, where that came from, I don't know. But I'm approaching 11 years this month of running a business that I never, ever wanted to do. And yet here I am. And so, yeah, limiting beliefs are, you know, I'm not ready, or I'm too old, or I'm not enough, or I don't have the right experience. I haven't crossed every T or dotted every I, so therefore I can't do this or I can't do that. There's so many limiting beliefs out there. Where do they come from? Well, often in our upbringing, childhood experiences. Sometimes they come from trauma, sometimes they're just there, but they usually come from experiences we have had. We're not necessarily born with having limiting beliefs. They come from the experiences we have. But to your point, Frankie, I truly believe that when we are able to first identify, oh yeah, that's a limiting belief that I have. Okay, where did it come from? Can I begin that process of mining, of digging, of discovering why it's even there? What can I do about it? And you can change your limiting beliefs. You can diminish them. They may still every once in a while rear their ugly heads.
Right.
But that's why they're there. I think it's a part of our own growth of owning who we are, understanding who we are, and moving forward. They're opportunities for growth when and if we're willing to look at them.
Wow. Yeah. One, I think that's such a big opportunity for so many people. And when you're going through it like that, it makes a lot more sense, because at that point you're able to make it more useful of a takeaway as far as, you know, how do I harness this? Because I find that like pain, failure, these types of things, even shame, are really important tools for us as long as we are constantly looking for ways to transform that into the opposite.
Okay.
I think a lot of times we want to just block it out. Like we think that's the answer. Like if I can just block this out, or like just be
Hmm.
like, oh, I'm just going to tell that no today. It's like, actually, maybe you should tell it yes,
Hmm.
and then go start the wrestling match now, because wrestling with these things is critical. Like I don't know that you can get to conviction. Otherwise, you keep ending up in this like tips, tricks, and functions and features of confidence. And then you wake up one day and you realize, wow, I'm living an inauthentic existence. I went
Hmm.
through this. I was super confident and I knew all the ways to be confident in whatever room I was in. And then I woke up one day and like was totally broken. And it was from that.
But confidence to me is a barometer. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Some days you're going to be, hey, I'm on top of the world and I just, I'm
Right.
there. And then there are other days you're like, well, what the hell just happened? I don't know.
Right.
Where'd my confidence
Where
go?
am I?
Right.
And it's
I
weird
do
how quickly that can turn.
exactly. So
Not the good weird,
no,
the
but
bad
I
weird.
believe that it's sometimes there's going to be an ebb and flow to confidence. Number one. Number two, confidence is something that we continue to practice, that we continue to grow with. And some people will say, well, how do I get more confident? Well, there's so many different things that you can do. And I talk about a lot of them in my book about how can I gain more confidence?
Mm.
And it is something that is a practice. Some people, when I'm working with them, they'll say, well, I'm sort of feeling like am I being an actor right now? Well,
Mm-hmm.
maybe you are a little bit, but the fact of the matter is, the more you practice something, the better off you're going to get at it. And that includes confidence, that includes public speaking, that includes writing, that includes everything that's doing a sport. If you practice it, you're going to get better at it.
Yep. And I think that's something that we also have to always look at, is just how important it is to practice, and also that it is practice. I think sometimes we take ourselves so seriously, and I've always go back to like, lawyers, doctors, they call it a practice. Now, especially from the doctor side, that's somewhat terrifying because it's like, oh, who wants a doctor
Who wants to
practicing on you?
practice on me? Right.
But it's a practice. Hey, they named it. I didn't name it. And I think that's because it's this like original mindset that maybe we have now, maybe we've lost, that like it's supposed to be always practicing, always experimenting, maybe even always playing to a degree. And
Yes.
we've talked a lot about that.
Yes.
And I forget, Liz, did I already get this from you? Did you tell me what you were into at 5? Not necessarily what you wanted to be when you grow up, but when you played make believe, what were you into back then?
I wanted to be an actress.
Oh, of course you did. Well, you succeeded at
And
that.
what's funny about that is that my parents thought it was like a horrible idea. There was like, they really did not want me to do that.
Right.
And yet they
What
were
did they want you
involved.
to do?
Oh, I don't know, but they wanted me to.
Doctor, lawyer, something like that?
No, they where there's a lot of doctors and lawyers, no, doctors and ministers in my family. But no,
Ah, well,
I
maybe the minister side is why they didn't want you to do the acting.
perhaps, but they were involved in local
The work of
community.
is acting the work of the devil? I don't know.
I don't know, but they were involved in local community theater. So go figure.
Oh,
All right.
that is a
So
double standard.
that's like a double standard.
Oh yeah, that's a pretty bad one.
Yeah, exactly. But that's, and I think it was because I was a very creative child. I loved to paint. I loved to draw. I loved to write. I loved to sing. I loved to dance. I was very
Mm.
much into all of that. And I did follow that path for a long period of time. Whereas I'm a classically trained singer. I taught high school choral music at the same time when I was singing over in Europe, and I sang for Pope John Paul II in Vatican Square. Pretty cool. I've done the national anthem for the
Oh, what?
Patriots, the Red Sox, and the Celtics, and I've performed with the
Wait,
Boston
what?
Pops. What?
I
Okay.
didn't know that.
Well, you didn't
Oh.
finish reading my book, I guess, because
No,
it's in there.
I didn't finish reading your book. I just got it.
So yeah, so I mean, I had that classically trained and educational background in music.
Wow, I love that.
And then I left that because I felt like there was something more I was supposed to do. After a couple
Mm.
years of teaching, I didn't know what it was. So I worked in retail for a period of time to try and figure it out. And I was reading this wonderful book called Who's Hiring Who by Richard Lathrop. And he talked about informational interviews. And I'd never heard of such a thing. But because I had done one television commercial when I was Miss Illinois in the Miss America Scholarship Pageant, thank you very much, paid for all of my education.
Oh, okay.
Okay. I thought, I wonder if I could do something in TV. Fast forward, I did an informational interview with 2 stations in Champaign-Urbana, Illinois, which was where I was living at the time. A position was created for me at the CBS affiliate, and that launched me into a 28-year career in
Wow.
television.
Look at that.
And then I started my own business. And so people always say, well, how did you go from that to this? And getting back to storytelling, everything was either storytelling or using my voice as a teacher, as a coach, motivating, inspiring, singing stories, helping, telling other people's stories using my voice on television. Then when I work with my clients, I'm helping them learn to tell their story using their voice. And now as a keynote speaker and an author myself, I'm sharing my story using my voice. Those are my themes and patterns. And
Oh, I love that.
I love helping people figure out, what are your themes and patterns? If you're trying to figure out how to create a next chapter for yourself, personally or professionally, I've had 4. This is Liz 4.0 right now. Okay?
Oh, I hear you. Yeah, you kind of have to have a lot of dados. I'm the same way.
Yeah, I
If
know
you're not
you
having
would.
a lot of dados, are you really living?
Yeah, exactly. And I believe every one of us, especially in this day and age, should be considering, not even if as happy as you are, no matter how much money you're making, hey, what else could I maybe do? And what else how could I improve even my personal life by creating yet another next chapter? It doesn't have to be only professional. And so that's a lot of what this book is about also, is really helping people understand that you can have more chapters, number one. There are themes and patterns that run through your life like rivers. And when you can connect the dots, as my grandmother's quote says, no knowledge is ever wasted. And being able to bring that through, what experiences have you had that unexpectedly you're like, wow, I learned that over here and I can use that here? Going back to the limiting beliefs, we stop ourselves from thinking about all the knowledge that we actually have and the experiences that we actually have, where we can connect the dots on all of those things.
Yeah, because the experiences are so important relationship to the to all of this and the conviction, because that's the one thing no one can take from you. And so that's why this can't even happen. You can't even walk in the door of like getting over limiting beliefs and like being in your full weird or your full you.
Yes.
And without being willing to share all that. Like if you're not willing to share your experiences, then you're not willing to share what would make you unique. And so you will always be chasing the features and functionality. You'll always be chasing that.
And I have a sort of a philosophy, if you will, when it comes to the concept of authenticity and vulnerability. Authenticity means that there's no question you live your core values. People know what you stand for. Vulnerability, on the other hand, is being willing to share those stories with the people who've earned the right to hear them.
Which is key there.
Yeah.
I think that's another thing. I'm sure you have to teach that too. I call it guardrails. Like I'm really big on like the power that comes from helping people unconditionally. I call it the limitless drug that I've
it's
learned from, as a kid, I got it because we were running homeless shelters. But as an adult, I lost it for a long time because I just didn't want to be poor anymore. And I didn't see that as my calling, and it got me into all kinds of trouble. But when I circled back and got sober and all of a sudden realized that the only way you stay sober is helping all these other drug addicts and alcoholics get sober, it came back to me and I was like, wow, this is powerful. And it's this incredible thing, but something I've been thinking about a lot lately, because a lot of people are asking me, they're like, I've tried to help people, whether it was somebody in Africa or somebody next door, and I didn't feel that good. And I was like, oh, okay, well that makes sense. And I think I know why. Because even though I'm very radical about helping others, it's very specific scope. And I think that's important. Like, so first off, the main thing is that I only help others in this way, this unconditional way, if they ask. That's number one. Meaning they ask and they believe that I have something that they want. That's the first thing. Now, that doesn't mean that's an automatic yes per se, but that has to be there. And I think so many times we try to volunteer or give our best to just anyone, and it falls flat. And they're asking themselves, why is that the case? And it goes back to what you were just saying, like people that have earned the trust, like that starts with them being vulnerable enough, humble enough to ask for help.
Yeah. And the
And
other
that's
thing,
usually a good, at least initial litmus test that I've found.
and I'm going to apply that to the coaching principle and consulting work that I do.
Yeah.
I can lead a horse to water. I can give you all the tools, tips, and techniques, to make you shine. But unless you are open, unless you are asking and willing to try something different, to get out of your comfort zone, doesn't matter. And so,
Mm-hmm.
to your point of being able to have people ask you, be open to growth, they're ready for it. They have to be ready for it. And
Mm.
that's where you get that energy exchange. And that's when you have the guardrails can kind of, you're going to have them. I call them boundaries because you need to have them for healthy relationships. There's always going to be boundaries and guardrails, especially in the work that you're doing. However, you can still share that energy when
Mm-hmm.
somebody's ready to have that energy exchange.
No, it's everything. And I think that, so many times people give up before the
Mm,
magic happens as well.
yeah, yeah.
Like, I mean, knowing, like, one of the, I don't, this isn't one of my talk titles, but I think one day it might be because it just keeps coming up. But over the last 25 years, I've employed a lot of people, and I've always been the slogan type or the idea type. So that's not new. And the one thing that so many people that were loyal to me for years that worked for me, the thing that they always remember that helped them the most was these two words: don't flinch.
Hmm.
And essentially, it's about bravery
Mm-hmm.
in the face of it, and it's also about consistency. And
Mm.
so, bravery and consistency, I think, are at the heart of don't flinch. But it's so important, and some of that I learned from recovery, which is like kind of the one day at a time concept, which I'm sure you're familiar with. And there really is something to that, like
Mm.
especially the work that we're doing, going deeper into conviction, reframing, transforming our limiting beliefs into something that is actually a superpower that we thought was a problem.
Mm-hmm.
And it's interesting. I love that you and I are in what I call the 2% of people that have kept their weird, their WYRD, that supernatural quality, right? So most people that have tuned into this show know that my weird is not the Weird Al Yankovic weird or the Shakespeare weird. It's actually the original word, which is spelled kind of funky. That's why I don't always share it, but it's WYRD. And that part, that key element that's tied to our fate and our destiny and that supernatural quality that, again, it's only going to be useful to me if I am bold or brave enough to show up with it. And then from there, it becomes this like thing that spreads where other people can feel safe. But it starts with me giving myself permission that nobody else is probably going to give me.
Mm-hmm.
And no, and I think a lot of people are waiting for that permission that
That
you're
is
supposed to
so
give
key.
yourself.
Oh my gosh, it's so key. You have to be willing to give yourself permission. And I know I was weird. I've always felt weird.
Mm-hmm.
both
Yeah,
both
starting from when they
both
told you,
words. Yes.
starting from when they told you couldn't be an actress.
Exactly.
Yeah, I
And
had the same thing.
and so, I mean, I've never ever felt like I fit in anywhere. And I still struggle with that to this day. The only difference now is that I trust myself more. I've given myself permission to be me, to own me. Not everybody's going to like me. And you know what? That's okay. That's okay. But to love your weird and be able to give yourself permission to love that piece of you, to own that piece of you, to show up as that person, that takes courage, that takes bravery, that takes authenticity, and it just takes giving yourself permission to say, you know what? This is me.
That's it. And what a great gift to give to somebody else,
Mm-hmm.
because it gives a lot of times that you'll choose to give yourself permission because you realize, wow, this, if they did it, then I can do it. And
Right,
it's okay. It's
right.
okay to give myself permission. And not
Exactly.
only is it okay, it's exactly what I've been missing to unlock growth.
One of the things that I love about doing my podcast, Live Your Best Life with Liz Bruner, and even in my book, is showing people that, hey, I did it. My guests on my show have done it. You've done
Mm-hmm.
it. You were on my show. And being able to share with people, you can have these next chapters if you own who you are, if you're willing to stretch yourself examine those limiting beliefs, own your authenticity,
Mm.
and understand that there's a lot of things that can connect, and just giving yourself permission to go there. And so many people say,
Yes.
well, I've got responsibilities, I've got this, I've got that. I get it.
Yep.
I get it. That's life. But can you still step out of that comfort zone just enough to give yourself permission and put on a different lens
Mm-hmm.
and see the possibilities? See the possibilities of who you could be and what you could do.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It's so true. And if it doesn't work, you can always go back to your limiting beliefs.
Exactly.
But I always tell people, hey, look, if it doesn't work, just try it. If it doesn't work, you can always go back to what you were
Whatever. Yeah. Okay.
doing. It's always going to be there waiting for you. Don't you
Oh,
worry.
it does. It shows up every once in a while.
Oh yeah. And if you're not careful, it'll show up tomorrow morning. It very patient, this this limiting belief
Yes.
thing. So, well, this is awesome. One of the things when I was thinking about our conversation today was this idea of just the work that you're doing now, and how it feels like it's something deeper, something more than just a job. What do you feel like is your mission or calling at this point? You've done a lot of things. You're Liz 4.0, soon you'll probably be Liz 5.0. What's your calling now? What's the next thing that you feel like, out of everything you've experienced in this world, that you just have to do? And what does that look like?
It's a couple of things. The first of which is, I truly believe that my vision for my life, personally and professionally, is to help motivate and inspire people to live their best life, whatever that means for them.
Mm-hmm.
But how I'm able to do that, I believe, is because I have skills and expertise that I have honed over many, many years. I have a lot of life experience. I'm pretty old. And I also believe that I have gifts and talents that I've been blessed with. And when you combine all of that, my goal is to help people get unstuck, to help them transform from where they are to where they want to go, to who they want to be, personally, professionally, or both. That's the work that I feel that I'm compelled to do and be able to share with the world. That's my goal.
I love that. And you're doing that now, right?
I believe I am.
Yes. Well,
I believe I
think you
am.
are, right? You believe you are. Well, that's good. That's an important belief here. I can't be having limiting beliefs on if we're getting it done.
Well, that doesn't mean I don't have those things that pop up every once in a while, but
yeah, right. You and the rest of us.
That's right.
It depends what day it is. It depends
the confidence
what day it
barometer,
is.
come on,
Yep.
it goes up and down.
That's
goes
right.
up and down.
And so, what do you do? Do what does the barometer look like? Is that kind of like an inventory process for you?
I don't know if I have a real strategy behind it. I just know that on the days that I may not be feeling my most confident, I will use some of the exercises I have in the book, which is, okay, Liz, can you stop and think about, just start with what you're grateful for. Let's just start right there. Okay. Because that, for me at least, it helps shift my mindset from either lack or frustration or fatigue or, oh man, I just don't feel like I have it today, to wait a minute, what do I have? What do I have in my life? So I'm a big journaler. I've been journaling for more than 40 years. And I just find it to be a very cathartic experience. It's not prose. It's completely extemporaneous writing, whatever comes to my mind. And the beauty sometimes is going back and looking at what you wrote a month ago, a week ago, a year ago, several years ago. Whoa, and all of a sudden this light bulb, this kaleidoscope goes click, and you're like, whoa, something, you connect the dots. And then, as silly as this sounds, it's a little game I play with myself, which is, I may be out on a run or a walk along the Charles River, and I'm like, okay, A, I am authentic. B, I am brave. C, I am confident. D, I am determined. And I literally would go through the alphabet and try and think of as many positive things that I could say about myself that just sometimes help shift my mind.
Oh, I love that.
And sometimes, how many words can I come up with A and B? I test myself.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, this I wish we could keep going. We have to kind of call it
I
somewhere.
know.
But I just love this conversation. I could talk about this all day.
Me too. I mean, I
And it,
really can talk about all this stuff. I really can, because people have told me, oh, you overthink everything. Well, I am a deep thinker.
yeah, no, you unfortunately it comes with the job.
Yes.
You know, you don't exactly get to be a leader in thought without doing a lot of thinking.
Right.
And
I,
it's a burden that you just kind of have to bear, because it's in the service of something greater, obviously.
well, and I love to have conversations that are deep conversations with people. What is your philosophy? What do you believe in? And why do you believe in this? And why do you believe in that? And to your point of just, all that thinking that we do, then being able to process it and
Mm,
give ourselves permission to share it with other people with the hope and intent that it's going to help them in some way. And that's why you share your stories. That's why I share my stories.
mm. I love it. Well, listen, obviously it's pretty easy to find you if I just Google Liz Bruner, but is there anybody, it's Brunner. Is
Correct.
there any other special kind of tips and tricks on how to learn more about you or get connected, maybe download some of your work?
Well, first of all, there's always my book, which you can find.
There it is.
I need to say my award-winning book and best-selling book.
Yeah, you got
So
two
yes,
different awards, Feather
yes, I
Quill
have.
and
Yes,
the book awards and
book excellence
bestseller.
awards. Yes, so very proud of that. And so obviously, if you go to lizbrunner.com, LIZBRUNNER.com, you can find everything about my book. You can also find all that other stuff. And my podcast is Live Your Best Life with Liz Brunner. I'm on all the major directories. And I
Love it.
also have a learning platform called bruneracademy.com.
Oh,
And
that
there
sounds fun.
are a couple of courses that are how to be a rock star public speaker, and it's self-paced, but it really can help give you some of the tips and tools that I share with people. So it's not as expensive, let's put it this way, as my one-on-one coaching experiences
Oh
are,
yeah.
but it's a great way to get started. And if you do the VIP version, then you can also have a coaching session with me. And
Oh, that's
then,
fun.
yeah, and then there are some courses that are aligned with my book. And so they're called the Dare Collection. So bruneracademy.com or lizbrunner.com. And I'm on Instagram, I'm on LinkedIn, I'm on Facebook, you know, the social platforms. And I would love for people to follow me, and I would love for them to sign up for my newsletter. It's only once a month. I promise I will not flood your inbox.
You
Okay.
got to put that in there just so we know, just in
Yes,
case.
exactly. And you can get to that on my
They're not
website
all
as well.
created equally, that's for sure.
No, exactly.
Well, I love it. Well, thank you so much for being on the show. And it's just
Mm.
been such an honor. I always love connecting. We're going to definitely connect again soon. Am I going to see you in Detroit?
You will see me in
Oh,
Detroit.
that's right.
Yes, you will.
Okay, well, that's good. So I'll see you in a couple of weeks. Everybody watching won't get the pleasure of getting to see Liz, but there are places that you can see Liz live and experience the glory of this work that we're talking about. So be on the lookout, sign up, follow, and find out what town she's going to be in next that you can catch her in. So,
I appreciate
Liz,
that.
thank you so much. Always a pleasure.
Oh, thank you so much, Frankie. I'm honored to have this time with you, and I appreciate your sort of understanding of my weird as you understand your weird, so that
Absolutely.
we can all own who we are and give ourselves permission. So thank you so much for having me on the show today.
Thank you. And for all of you who've been listening and watching, this has been another episode of the School of Weird. Until next time, we'll see you soon.